Welcome to GCA Unmuted, the podcast where we share the stories and strategies that show how Georgia Cyber Academy makes online learning work. In every school, there are people working quietly behind the scenes to make learning possible. At GCA, paraprofessionals play a critical role in supporting students, teachers, and families, often in ways that don't get enough spotlight. I'm joined today by Kay Sheppard, a paraprofessional at GCA who supports students and teachers day in and day out and helps make personalized support possible at scale in a virtual environment. We'll explore what the paraprofessional role looks like in a virtual school, how support is delivered across classrooms and students, and why this work is essential to student success. So thanks, Kay, for coming on. And first, tell us, can you share a moment or experience that you think that really captures what it means to be a paraprofessional at GCA?
Oh man, being a paraprofessional at GCA means just meeting your students right where they are and giving them the extra level of support and having students and learning coaches reach back out 1, 2, or even 3 years later saying, hey, you made a difference in my child's life. I remember a child who was very reserved when she started with us, and she seemed to have like a lot of anxiety. And as time went on and we built that relationship, she really just started to open up and absolutely blossom. And that's something that showed me that it's consistency and presence is really important as a paraprofessional here in this virtual learning environment.
Mm. And what do you think about that student or situation like really captures what it means to be a parapro? Is it because the student started reserved and then blossomed? Do you think that's it?
That's definitely a big part of it because a lot of times I would need to pull this student one on one and just talk with her and just kind of get her not necessarily back on track because she was focused on what we were doing, but she seemed very nervous, very like she was having a lot of anxiety. And then just being able to reach her, get her back on track, and just connect with her. That was really the biggest thing was connecting with my students. So.
What do you think it was about you or what you were doing that helped you connect with this student? This student that was like really anxious, right? But then somehow it was your connection that helped the student kind of like open up, blossom a little bit. What do you think it was like specifically about like you or your support that allowed you to connect with her?
Yeah, so just being able to pull her down one on one and just kind of talk with her about maybe something she's interested in or what's going on with her, like if she was feeling sad. Being able to like grab her down and just talk with her for a moment, it just seemed like it recentered her in what we were doing. And I guess I really just talked with her and just it seems like she just needed someone there. And once we reached a level where she was feeling pretty good, we would go back up into the main room and we would be able to continue what we were doing. And she had so much growth that year. And it was really awesome.
Mm. And when you say main room, so this was a breakout room that you would work with her in, and then the main session during
Right,
during a
right. So we would
class?
Right. So I would see her in the main session. If I noticed there was something going on, I would open up our breakout rooms, which is like, like a smaller room, which it would just be me and her. And then her and I would go and talk for just a couple of minutes just to kind of get her recentered.
Mm. Very cool. And can you let us know what grade or grades you work with?
Absolutely. So I have been working in kindergarten for the last 3 years, but this year there's been a little bit of restructuring. So I now have the opportunity to work in first and second grade. So on Monday and Wednesdays, I'll work with first grade for a little while. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I will also work with second grade for a little while. And that's
Oh,
been
wow.
really, really awesome.
And this story that you're sharing with us was a kindergarten student, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was a kindergarten student.
And what do you think, like this experience, this story about connecting with the student who was reserved and then they opened up? What do you think this experience like says about the value that paraprofessional support gives in a virtual setting?
Well, we have to be we have to be very intentional. And so being able to connect one-on-one with those students while like that my main teacher is teaching or pulling a small group, being able to connect and just kind of build up those, what's a good way to say this, I guess just building those relationships really helps with the academics because, many students in this virtual environment, they're expected to be more independent, but many still need a lot of guidance, especially in these lower grades. And so as a paraprofessional, I'm able to help kind of bridge that gap and support that independence, but also making sure they don't like feel alone. I think that was a big thing with my student before as well,
Sure,
just not
no.
feeling alone.
Yeah, right. It sounds like you're saying that the teacher is having to focus on perhaps a main lesson, but then your support, your value with the paraprofessional is you can come in and kind of see like, oh, this student seems to be like disconnecting or something seems to be bothering him. Like you're able to
Absolutely.
have that like laser focus to go in and maybe put them in a breakout room, figure out what's going on, and then bring them back. Otherwise, they wouldn't be learning in the lesson, right?
Right, right. Because they might be here present, they might have their camera on, but they may not be focused. If I can pull them back, even if it's just one or two kids per class to get them back on track, that's going to help them in the long run. And that's going to show them, hey, you're supported here, you're loved here. We care about not only your well being, not only your academics, but your well being as well.
Mm,
So that's
yeah.
something that's really important for us in our classes.
That's so good. So, for the people that are listening to this who might not be super familiar with like a paraprofessional or what they do, maybe they've heard the term, but they're like, "Ah, I don't really know what they do." What's a typical day look like for you as a paraprofessional at GCA?
Okay, so a typical day for me looks like logging into class with my kindergarten students bright and early. We'll usually have a little bit of whole group time, but then my main focus is small groups. So I work with small groups of students, and then every now and then I'll do one-on-one, like for assessments. Um, but then I will work in my first or second grade class, depending on the day. I'll work with students in small groups with a literacy focus. That's my whole big thing is literacy. And then I'll also pull one-on-one. After lunch, I'll go to Champ Lab with my kindergarten class where we really focus on that literacy development and, of course, more small groups. Um, no 2 days really look exactly the same, but the goal is always the same to support literacy and confidence in our young learners.
And when you say literacy, that is a fancy term for reading? Is that
Yes,
oh,
yes,
okay?
fancy term for reading. Yes.
Okay. So you don't do any writing, right? Or is it reading and writing?
We definitely do writing, but it is mostly my focus is mostly reading and working on those reading small group. But we definitely do a lot of writing in whole group and ELA.
Perfect. So your typical day, you're supporting, you're doing these
Yep,
things. So
pulling
can you
students.
polling students, can you zoom in a little bit for us now and tell us how are you supporting? So the literacy piece is the academic side, right? So it sounds like you have the focus on like literacy development, but is there
Yep,
anything that you're specifically doing to support these students behaviorally or socially? Because you sounded like you were hitting that behavior piece, right? In the whole group session, pulling students breakout room, but maybe
yep,
tell us a little bit more about the behavior and social aspects since you hit on the
absolutely.
academic side.
Absolutely. So throughout the day, I have three monitors, and one monitor always has securely. And so I'm able to see what my students are doing. And now, because I work with my younger kids, they get off task. They want to get on some other websites or try to get in a gim kit, or they're usually just doing something else. So I'm able to, without interrupting anyone, I'm able to just kind of move the class tab back up on their screen and just put it right back up on their screen. Like, no, we're supposed to be here. Um, So that's one of the things I'm constantly on securely monitoring and redirecting throughout the day. Um, and then
Tell us, let me interrupt you before you go too far. Tell us, for people that aren't familiar, what is Securely and what it does, and how you're able to access it. What do you mean by that?
So Securely is our program here where we can see what the student has up on their screen at any given moment, as long as there's a session. Like we have to start a session and it goes for a certain amount of time. But then when that session is open, I get a live view of each student's screen that I can look at, and it changes as they're kind of going through. And I can see all of the different tabs that they have open, even if it's not pulled up on their screen. So that's what Securely is for. It's just kind of to be able to monitor what they're doing on their devices to make sure that they're staying on task, staying safe. And so that's what Securely is.
Sure,
So I'm in Securely. I'm always looking at Securely, making sure my kids are focused on a lesson, not on some random website. And then a lot of times I do need to pull them into a breakout room, not to chat, but just be like, hey, what are you doing? What you doing? Let's get back on focus here because they'll be doing something else. Or one of the big things is we have to have our cameras on. And so if we don't have cameras on, Miss K is pulling you into a breakout room until you have that camera on. That is what my kindergarten students have come to expect. So, or we're going to troubleshoot and figure it out. And that's another big part of my job is tech support. I'm really, really good with technology. I'm actually in school for IT as well. But it's like when kindergartners come into GCA, first they have to learn how to use a computer. Then we can teach them how to read and do math.
sure.
And so in the beginning, that's a lot of my area in the kindergarten. I'm pretty good at kind of explaining things and just like how to work the computer and different things to click on. I'm pretty good at explaining that with my students. So I support a lot of that at the big, especially at the beginning of the year.
Very cool. No, and that's a great point that these, especially because you're with the kindergartners, making sure they're navigating all the different technology side of piece.
Correct.
What does collaboration look like, Kay, in terms of like the teachers you're working with, the different teams you're working with? Are you working with just one teacher the whole year? Are there multiple teachers? Like, what's your collaboration piece like from the paraprofessional
Absolutely.
perspective?
So, like I said a little earlier, in the past couple of years, I've worked in just kindergarten. So I had just Miss Felicia or Dr. Lowman-Sikes. We call her Miss Felicia in our class. And but this year, I now work with a first grade team, and then I work with another second grade teacher. Um, I have a regular planning meeting with my team teachers. Ms. Felicia and I meet every single week. And then I also attend our collaborative planning with all of the kindergarten teachers once a month. And then we also have a monthly meeting with just our paraprofessionals. And in this meeting, we talk about like upcoming topics we'll be teaching. We share resources. We help anyone who may be having an issue with a program or who just needs a little walkthrough of something. We're a very supportive group, and I'm really grateful to be part of a para team. You know, we're all working towards the same goal with different angles. But yeah, I'm meeting with my teachers throughout the week, and one of my teachers, we talk about what we're going to do at the beginning of each class session. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit to juggle because each teacher or each teacher team does things just a little bit differently. So it's been
Sure.
interesting.
It sounds like you have to remain pretty flexible, right? You have to have
Yes,
that kind of
definitely, definitely.
personality to do that because you're working with different people. How do you build relationships with students when you're supporting them online? Have you found that that's pretty difficult, or like what are you doing to build these relationships?
I don't feel like it's difficult. I feel like there's just a way you've just got to be able to talk to them. Working with my students and talking with them daily right in their homes builds such a good relationship with not only the students, but their learning coaches and families as well, like siblings as well, you know, and, um, you know, one of the things that my kids love is just playing those games. Those game kids, they love to challenge me, or we'll say, "Don't get Miss Kay with the snowballs," and then of course they're all chasing me around or stealing my golden blanket. And the smiles on their face when I make a big deal about getting out is priceless. But they're practicing their skills and we're having a good time. It's a win-win. And those learning games, they lower anxiety and they build trust. And I've learned that when students associate learning with joy, they show up more. And so I try to make, I try to really build those relationships, and that they know that just we're going to have a good time. It's not going to be stressful. They don't, they're just here to try their best. We're going to figure it out together. That's one of my big things. Hey, don't worry about it. We're going to figure it out together. They love that. And so those are some of the ways that I work on building those relationships. And in kindergarten, we are super duper silly, and so we usually spend just a couple of minutes just talking to the kids, like, what'd you have for lunch? Did you have your delicious lunch? For whatever reason, kindergartners love to stick their little toes in the camera, and so we'll be like, I'm gonna get your toes. We're getting your toes. And so just little things like that over time, just making them laugh, just talking with them, that really helps build those relationships up.
Man, that's fantastic. I guess I should start showing my toes in these interviews. That'll
Might
make
be
things
that.
maybe this that'll make things more exciting. You've mentioned GimKit a few times. Can you tell us what GimKit is?
Sure. This is just like this little game where they can be characters, and there's like different versions of games. So one of the ones that they love is it's like this little winter land. They can run around and throw snowballs at each other, but they have to answer questions to get snowballs. So they have to answer learning questions to
Uh,
get those snowballs to be able to throw.
that's smart. Very smart.
They love it.
Well, Kay, what do you think that other schools, whether brick and mortar schools or other virtual schools, what do you think they could learn from the way that GCA's uses paraprofessionals?
Well, I think that utilizing us paraprofessionals for additional support and specifically for small groups is extremely beneficial. I've been able to support my students' literacy development and have witnessed their amazing growth in fluency, since like that's my main focus. Um, but I think that using paraprofessionals strategically and making sure one of the big things is making sure that paraprofessionals are trained properly. I took the science of reading for my professional development track last year, and that has been a huge game changer for me. Um, so just if they want to focus on their literacy development, because I know that's a big problem here in America right now. I think that paras being used for that is the best thing. When paras are used strategically, student growth accelerates.
Mhm. It sounds like other schools should also be allowing toes in the classroom.
Definitely, definitely toes.
That would help. Have you been maybe you could answer this even if you haven't been, but do, do you know like what makes being a paraprofessional at GCA different from or unique from other schools if you have been a paraprofessional at another school?
I've not been a paraprofessional, but I was a preschool teacher before this. And what makes the paraprofessional role at GCA unique is that every single thing that we do in this virtual setting has to be intentional. We don't have the proximity or the body language in the same way as BAM, so we have to be very deliberate about like how we're building relationships, how we're offering support, and especially noticing when a student needs help. Because you might miss over one or two students in this virtual environment because it's just a little bit harder. Um, and then you know they are also expected to be a little bit more independent, but they definitely still need that guidance. One of the one of the unique things is having to essentially teach them how to use the computer from afar. So that's a bit of a challenge, but I think that I think it's coming along really well. Like their students, they pick things up very very quickly. But part of what makes it unique is just our students and families, because we have a very just, our group of families come for all different reasons. And,
Different
and
backgrounds, very diverse population. That's
right, right.
right.
And, virtual learning does remove some barriers, but only if the support is very intentional. So I think that's kind of what makes it a little bit different is things have to be a lot more intentional. Each choice you make has to be very intentional and deliberate.
Mm. No, that's a great point. What do you think, or how do you think actually, how does GCA support? Because you did mention a professional development track and you did the science of reading.
Mhm.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about that more, or just something else. But how does GCA support you? Like, how does GCA support paraprofessionals? And then that support for paraprofessionals turns around and helps y'all support students.
Yeah, so the science of reading was a year long, almost like a college level course that we had to go through last year. And all the teachers did it, and all the paras did it as well, which I have learned since then that that's not a normal thing to have the paraprofessionals go through that course. I learned that that's not a thing at other schools. And so that has been so beneficial to me, especially with phonics instruction, phonemic awareness, and just all of those literacy things that we have to do. I learned things that like I didn't know and that maybe I was doing wrong. And now I'm able to support my students better. As paraprofessionals, we also with the teachers, we go to our professional development tracks to learn how to better support our students. And that's one of the great things that they support us with. In addition to that, our admin does provide us with, because I was saying that like working with all the different classes, it kind of makes it a little bit of a challenge to kind of um, keeping track of which small group is doing what and when. But our admin provided us with a wonderful para plan template to use, and I do think that I would lose my head if I didn't have that thing because it's like every 45 minutes, I'm doing something different with a different small group, and then just having different systems and routines makes it possible to support our students effectively, and this having the right tools securely, and then having our class and our breakout rooms, having the right tools just really makes a difference in being able to support my students.
No, that's fantastic. And also you mentioning like being able to do the science of reading and saying you
Mm-hmm.
haven't heard that paras can are offered the same type of professional development as teachers. That sounds like maybe that's the thing that kind of makes things a little different
That's
from
huge.
or what other schools could learn about
Yes.
what GCA does is
Yeah, I think that's a great
perhaps
idea.
perhaps
Professional development for our paras.
and
That
what that looks
science of
like.
reading.
Sure.
Mhm.
Now, this might get you fired up a little bit, but what do you think you would say to someone who's like, you know what, paraprofessionals, that can't work. They can't really support in a virtual environment. Students can't really be helped all that much or supported all that much in a virtual school. What do you think you would say to someone who said that?
Well, you know what? I would say a few years ago, before I came to GCA and learned about this virtual school, I may have said the same thing. I may have said the same thing. But now that I've been here and I have learned and I have seen my students grow as a result of the help that I provide, like it's just been night and day difference. Being able to pull those small groups and work in those small groups or even one on one with a student really makes a huge difference in their learning. Rather than having just a big whole group all the time or not being able to go to small groups as many times throughout the week. Because if it were just one teacher, maybe the student would only have one, maybe two small groups a week. But with me in the class, we're able to hit many small groups. I think we hit like we do at least 4 regular ones that are planned in addition to some of the other things that I'm pulling for as well. Um, and that's just for kindergarten.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
but yeah, we have we have a really great big template of just all the different things that I'm doing with my students. And I think that if someone were able to come in and see what I'm doing with them and see the growth that they're making, and not just me, of course, all of our wonderful paraprofessionals here at GCA,
Mm.
I think that opinion would change. I think that opinion would change.
Tell them to come and see. So,
Yeah.
the last question we have for you, Kay, is what do you think the biggest lesson that you've learned, or just a lesson? If you can't think of the biggest lesson, what's a lesson that you've learned about supporting students in a virtual school?
Um, Main thing that I've learned is that each and every child has potential. You just have to reach them where they are.
Mm.
Families join GCA for, a variety of reasons in this ever-changing world. And when you can reach a child right where they are and touch their hearts in their own homes, it makes a huge impact on not just the student, but the family as well. Virtual learning, it does remove some barriers. Um, if support is intentional, but we just have to meet our families where they are. And that builds trust and long term success. And I think that's one of the greatest things I've learned is just meet your families where they are. And every child has potential, every single one.
No, that's so good. Meet them where they are. Every child has potential, and you are a part of that. So here's today's big idea. When paraprofessionals are empowered, supported, and integrated into the school community, student support doesn't just reach more learners, it reaches them better. Thanks again to Kay Sheppard for joining us and sharing her perspective. If this episode gave you a new appreciation for the people who support learning behind the scenes, be sure to subscribe and join us next time on GCA Unmuted, Voices of Virtual Education. Thanks again, Kay.
Thank you.